Good evening, everyone. We are back continuing our Don Bluth film retrospective. And I was going to say we're up to the 90s. We entered the 90s last week with Rockadoodle, and today we're picking it up with 1994's Thumbelina. This was a first time watch for me on this review. It was one that I was actually really looking forward to, just from the poster and the DVD case and everything. And from trailers that I remembered on home video back in the day, it feels probably the most Disney-fied version of all the Don Bluth films. I think, having watched it now, that's very, very evident. And there's going to be a lot of comparisons that we can have to many of the Disney products around that time, I think. I know that you've bumped me down. Could you bump me down by just one, if that's possible? Because I'm getting the feedback just a little bit.
There you go.
So Thumbelina, as I mentioned last week, the 90s wasn't great for Don Bluth. There was a lot of flops, a lot of financial failures, this being one of them. This was done on a budget of 28 mil and it only brought in 17 mil. And we'll go into reasons as to probably why that is. Because, well, I'll give you the answer right now. Because Don Bluth likes to release his films up against the big Disney film of that time, which probably isn't the wisest thing to do. But yeah, Thumbelina. I can't remember if you said you'd already seen this one. Was this one that you'd watched a lot, or an ex?
No, I think I'd seen it briefly, but I didn't remember anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, seeing it for the first time ever. It was. I was reminded of lesbian Tinkerbell in Hook. Just because of the brown hair at first.
We need some clarification of that. We had a little bit of a chat before we went live, and you said, "What's that film with lesbian Tinkerbell in?" And I had no idea what you meant, and I think you meant what was her name, Julia Roberts from Hook.
Yeah, I was reminded briefly of her just because of the brown hair, and she's a little person. So there was that comparison I made in my head. But no, I'd never seen it. It had been one that I'd seen. I'd say I'd seen bits of. I might have seen it as a kid, but I don't remember it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just remember it from trailers. I think it was Warner Brothers who distributed this film, so it would have been on. I don't even know which one it would have been now, but I remember the trailer for it, and it shows you some of the songs. It shows you some of the clips. The main one that has just lived in my head from the trailers, because did you find this as well when you watched videos as a kid? The film that you watch is memorable, but the trailers before it are just as memorable, and you memorize those, and you can even memorize
the singing Elvis at the beginning of Looney Tunes.
Yeah. And then we worked that was the beginning of Space Jam, wasn't it? Was it the beginning of the Space Jam videos?
No, I think it was the beginning of just the bumper collection of Looney Tunes videos. But yeah, we worked out what it was.
But yeah, so I would have seen the trailer for this. I think I'm pretty sure I don't have this on video. I'm now second guessing myself now. If I did have it on video, I never watched it for whatever reason. But I just remember the trailer, and I remember the song, the main one, like Thumbelina, she's a funny little squirt, and you've got all the
because it was in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's why.
Yeah, you messaged saying the Indiana Jones themes in this, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? As I often do, you'll often just message me with a statement, and then we have to unpack what that statement actually means. And then I was singing Thumbelina, and then da, 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 da. I was like, oh yeah, it is.
Yep.
So I guess we'll just go in with initial opinions on this one, because I watched this earlier today in preparation for this review. What did you think to Thumbelina then?
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. That's pretty high. It's pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty high. So was Raiders of the Lost Ark. That was 7 out of 10 as well. I would give that. I liked it. It was fun. It was whimsical. It was colourful. There was, what's the word? It was a bit random, which was nice. I like that. I like random things that are just okay, cool. It is what it is. And that was cool. The songs were okay. The first one was the best. The songs were okay. There was nothing standout amazing, but the first one I thought was the best one. I thought that was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this film for me, I mean, it's 1994. You have a lot of films coming out around this time. I was just checking the release date for The Swan Princess. That was also 1994. Disney was making the big bucks around this time. We've already done our Disney retrospective, and that's probably the age of Disney that's near and dear to our hearts inherently. It's nostalgic. That's the Disney films that we experienced with the 90s ones, the Disney Renaissance. And quite rightly so. From The Little Mermaid in 1989, they just skyrocketed in success. Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, they were really, really cranking them out at this point. 1994, we would have had Lion King. Yeah, we would have been up to around this time. So, Thumbelina going toe-to-toe with Lion King that year. Probably not the best idea. And I do think a little bit of that might be a bit of bad blood and hubris with Don Bluth and where he stood with the Walt Disney Company, and having two successful films in the past that outdid a Disney movie when he bought out An American Tail and The Land Before Time. But those 90s Disney films are really, really good. I mean, that is sort of like the gold standard of animation now. Disney had found their formula and were running with it. And around this time, this film included Swan Princess, there's a bunch of other examples as well, were trying to cash in on that Disney hype. And they were trying to copy that formula as much as possible. They were becoming, we were going back to the days of traditional fairy tale stories, the Hans Christian Andersen stories. Disney had made it big in 1989 with The Little Mermaid. Well, why don't we adapt another Hans Christian Andersen movie and also get the voice actress who did the voice of Ariel in The Little Mermaid, to be in this movie as Thumbelina? You've got Gilbert Gottfried, yeah. Apparently, though, he was cast in this before he accepted the role in Aladdin. I don't know if that's true, but it is a coincidence, and it is just another comparison because Aladdin is going to be the more memorable movie out of the two. Iago, Gilbert Gottfried's voice, that's just immediately what you go to. Of course, you had the music. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, and of course, you have the music with this one. And there's loads of moments. There's even some entire musical numbers in this, which definitely make you think of famous scenes from other Disney films. You have the pop version of the song in the end credits. It sounds exactly like it's sort of like a combination of Beauty and the Beast and A Whole New World. There's a scene in this. Did you see the Whole New World scene that I was talking about?
Yeah, I was going to say, even before that happens, there's a moment with there's a character and she says something. And I thought, that reminds me of Mrs. Potts. And then the thing happened. I went, that's interesting.
Yeah. The old, is it like is it when they're flying and there's like the little bug and the grandma bug?
Yeah.
And it's like, are they going to live happily ever after, Mama? Yeah. So I was noticing all of these things. And I think the best way to sort of vocalize my opinions on this is that, did I enjoy this movie? Yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I didn't think it was groundbreaking. I think it's probably on the higher end of average. It feels like Disney light. It doesn't quite have that same Disney magic. I think it could have done with a few more passes on the script and the story. It feels very disjointed. And I don't know how much of that is attributed to Don Bluth penning the script for this thing and the screenplay, or if that is inherently what the actual original Hans Christian Andersen story is like. I've heard it is very episodic, where she runs into Mrs. Toad, and then she's, with Mr. Mole, and then Miss Fieldmouse. So, and then you've got the whole Beetle thing as well. So maybe the story does move through those random encounters. We've been chatting sort of off stream about, we really appreciate stories like that when they're done well. These sort of random encounters like The Hobbit or Alice in Wonderland, where you just move from set piece to set piece, and there's fun, quirky characters and everything like that. And I think it can be done well. This one, there's a certain moment where it happens that immediately took me out of the movie, because I was kind of with this film. And then we have the Spanish frogs. And it immediately took me out. The setting and the place it was set and the music didn't vibe with the rest of the film before it. And it feels very disjointed. It's kind of like Rockadoodle in that way. It's not as bad as Rockadoodle, but it still has that slightly unfocused.
Isn't it weird how I've kind of forgotten about Rockadoodle?
Yeah, that's not surprising at all, to be honest.
It just kind of happened, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that was the thing we spoke about.
The algorithm's strong, though, because since we did that review, and maybe since I was YouTubing stuff about Rockadoodle, I have had loads of random videos come up in my subscription feed and recommended about Rockadoodle.
I've had loads of what to do if your child has Down syndrome. So I don't know what that says.
Oh, is that some of the 3 a.m. Googling YouTube things that you say?
Maybe.
But yeah, so Thumbelina, I think one of the reasons it maybe feels a little bit disjointed in the story. I think it could have done it with a few more passes on the screenplay, maybe, and just focused the story down a little bit more. The original screenplay was apparently given to an American screenwriter called Carol Lynn Pearson, and she was given 9 months to pen the script. She turned it in 8 months, and Don Bluth read through it that night, and he said, apparently, quote, "There are some great moments." You know, this is the kind of criticism. You start with a positive. It's like, there's some great moments, but there's also some stuff missing. And he mentioned that he felt that Cornelius was apparently, quote, "a wimp" in this version of the screenplay, and that Thumbelina is too pitiful on herself. So he gave the screenplay back to her and said, "These are my recommendations. These are my revisions. Try and patch it up." He gave her a month to do it, and she turned it back in, but she wanted to stay strong to the story that she'd written. She was kind of unmoving in the changes that he recommended. So he threw it all out, and Don Bluth took on the job of doing the screenplay himself. And I don't know if that was the right idea. I mean, I haven't seen the original version of the script. It could have been awful. Maybe this is the better version of what we got, but it kind of had me right up until the point we got to the random Spanish frogs, and it felt a little bit akin to All Dogs Go to Heaven, where we have the random alligator moment where he just starts singing.
It didn't feel like the pigeons from the wild, no.
Oh, yeah. That's another movie I forgot about, Rockadoodle in the Wild. There,
yeah. Those are things that happened.
So with this one, and this is going to be sort of a running theme with a lot of Don Bluth stuff. I mean, we've had it in some of his previous films already, and we'll have it in the ensuing ones as well. A lot of financial troubles.
What's that thing that frog wears? So there's like a white clown suit thing.
Are you? You're talking about the Swallow character, the French.
Is it just a white clown suit? Is that what it is?
Well, he's like a mime, isn't he? Almost.
That's what I mean. It's like a mime-ish kind of like, but it's that what it is? Just like a white clown suit? Is that what you would say it is?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. At the beginning, I was trying to remember when these films came out, but this did predate this film. I thought, right, okay, we're in Paris. We're getting a pan of the city. Did you pick up on some of those digital shots as well? Every now and then, like the camera, when the bird flies in at the very beginning, it switches to digital and it's weaving in and out of the buildings like in a POV.
I never know.
And it kind of jarred me a little bit because Disney integrates the digital stuff a little bit more seamlessly. This was just like the camera moving through this digital landscape and it didn't sort of mesh with the rest of the animation. But we have this sort of colorful French clown-like character who's narrating the story. I thought, oh, this is like Clopin from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and you see Notre Dame in the background because we're in Paris. And I was thinking, oh, okay, these are more of like these connective tissues. But this did come out way before Hunchback of Notre Dame, so I won't come down on this film like thunder for that.
But that wasn't that great of a movie anyway.
How dare you? That's my favorite Disney movie.
It's okay.
You can see a lot of those traditional Disney tropes in there. You have the book at the beginning that opens and takes you into it, like those old school, like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. A lot of the old time Disney films do that. And Don Bluth very much is a carryover from those older days of Disney that he had so much respect for. And you can see that, you know, moved over to this film, definitely. So I didn't think this was an awful film. I think it's got all the ingredients there to be a good film, but maybe the story does feel a little bit stretched out for the runtime. There's certain characters that just sort of disappear. You have Prince Cornelius, who is a thing, and then he seems to not be in the movie for a huge period of time. We just sort of follow Thumbelina going through these random encounters. A lot of it is stitched together with a significant amount of musical numbers in this film. Did you feel like there were too many? It felt like every couple of seconds we were getting one.
Yeah, but the thing is, none of them stood out to me. Really.
Same.
Only the first one. The first one was cool. And I thought, okay, this might be good. And then it was just kind of like, So, I don't know.
Now, Barry Manilow did all the music for this one. Barry Manilow is a fantastic singer and songwriter. He composed the score as well for it. And he always fancied himself a film composer. He always wanted to give it a go. And there are some really, really genuinely nice songs in here. I think my favorite one, when you say your favorite one is the first one, is that Follow Your Heart that the bird sings? Or
Yeah,
are you talking about the main
one, was
Thumbelina? Oh, the
Thumbelina,
main, yeah.
That wouldn't be the first one, but to me, it stands out. It's the first one I remember.
Again, it's very Beauty and the Beast, isn't it? That formula from Disney. It's very much like, look, there she goes. That girl is so. You know, it introduces you into the world and your main character. I think my favorite one. It is a little bit derivative, but I think it's quite a nice song. It's "Let Me Be Your Wings." It's the romantic. It's
That's not that great.
I really like it. I've been listening to it all day after I watched the movie. It is very a whole new world and Beauty and the Beast mashed together. Especially when you get to the pop version at the very end. And I think the only reason that I find that song particularly memorable when we compare it to every other one is that it repeats so much throughout the film. It keeps coming back, and I get the necessity for reprises in songs like that, and if it is the main love theme. But some of these songs, like "Follow Your Heart," gets reprised 3 times in this film. "Let Me Be Your Wings," that comes in at about let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4 times in this movie.
They
And I
should have
feel
just
like,
reprised "You'll Be in My Heart."
yeah. So I was looking at the soundtrack. There's 19 songs on the soundtrack, which is quite substantial. I feel like they maybe could have backed off some of those musical numbers and just had more moments of actual character and dialogue.
That's the
And
thing. When there's too much music, I think it takes away from the plot. I get musicals, and you know, great, they are what they are. But if you have too many, it takes away from the plot, and it just becomes a whole show rather than an actual thing that's going on. And then there's choreographing in the middle. It becomes just, yeah.
A good musical number, or just a good musical in general, I think anyway, should advance the story through its music. And there are some examples of that. It doesn't always have to advance the story, I guess. Sometimes it can be just like a funny comedic one every now and then. But when there's just a lot of funny comedic ones that don't really amount to all that much, you think, well, we could have just removed that song and just had a little bit of dialogue there instead, and just punctuate and pace those musical numbers out a little bit more effectively. And I think, I think we could have dropped a good few of them from this, maybe. I think also with a film like this, where you are trying to follow the formula, if you look at the Disney formula of the Disney Renaissance, what did most of them have? You have fairy tale story. Usually, they're typically the best selling ones, the memorable ones.
Mm-hmm.
You have it follows the stage musical, like a Broadway musical structure in terms of its songs. There's always a song about what the main character wants. You have Ariel's like Part of Your World, and you do have one in this where she wants like a fairy prince, doesn't she? She wants to find love. She wants to find someone who's the same height as her. So we tick that off. The villains, though, a lot of those classic Disney films have a very
There's a
very
villain with a villain song.
Yeah, and in this one, would you say the villain is like the beetle or the frog, like the Hispanic frog, randomly in this movie?
The villain is humanity.
And then you've got Mr. Mole towards the end, and then Miss Fieldmouse is trying to coerce her into this marriage with Mr. Mole. And
yeah, it's not a very solid, this is a villain, this is a basic trope kind of thing. Because the thing that the 90s Disney movies particularly have is they're all just basic. It's, to go back to Indiana Jones, like Indiana Jones is a, guy needs to find something because why not? Like that's legit just the thing. With this, it's like, like there's a villain, there's musicals, it's all just a set structure, whereas this didn't really fall into that.
Yeah. And I mean, there is some nice music in here, but I agree with you for the most part. I don't know if it's just the sheer amount of songs. A lot of them just kind of wash over you after a while, and you're like, okay, they're singing and dancing for a couple of minutes. Let's get on with the story. But yeah, my favorite would probably be "Let Me Be Your Wings" or "Thumbelina." I agree, they're probably my favorite one. Now, I was wondering when I was watching this movie why the part where the frogs show up caught me off guard. So the main one who plays Mrs. Toad, or whatever her name is, Mrs. Frog, is a singer called, I think, Caro is how you pronounce it. She's a Spanish singer, comedian, and guitarist, I think, as well. And she's had a lot of surgery. She has big lips. She has a big personality as well. And Don Bluth said he just wanted to sort of port that into the character. He wanted to bring a lot of the voice actress's personality and appearance into the actual character as well. And I was wondering why that part caught me off guard so much when I was watching the film, because, as I say, we set it in Paris. I know you have people speaking with like an American accent or whatever. That's kind of by the by with these films. But then all of a sudden we have Spanish music coming in and Spanish speaking characters, and it did sort of jar me out of the film. It didn't mesh with the fairy tale. It didn't mesh with the tone, I guess, and the setting that had been established, because these characters don't come into it until maybe like 25 minutes into the movie. And then I was trying to think of another comparison to another Disney film and I was thinking, well, maybe Little Mermaid, where you have Sebastian the crab, you have this Caribbean crab, and I'm like,
they've got similar voices, haven't they?
well, I was like, well, he doesn't mesh with the setting and the tone, or wherever we're at. But Sebastian gets introduced into the film very, very early on. For pretty much like the second scene of the film, we have Sebastian who's introduced and has one of the most memorable songs in the film with Under the Sea as well. Whereas this one, maybe if we introduced the frogs towards the beginning, that would have been more consistent. I don't know. I'm just trying to think
song with the what are they called? Horns with the squeaky things, and they're frogs.
Oh, that's the Christmas song, isn't it?
Yeah,
Paul McCartney.
Yeah, there's a thing I was thinking of, and
we all stand together. Is it that one?
Yeah, there you go.
Boom, boom, boom. But yeah. So that's the music for this one. I think it's a solid soundtrack. Barry Manilow was actually, he agreed that there must have been like a contract or an arrangement. He was hired to compose 3 scores for 3 Don Bluth pictures. And he ended up doing 2. So Thumbelina's his first one. His next one in a couple of weeks' time is Pebble and the Penguin. And apparently for a third one, Don Bluth was going to do a retelling of the story of Rapunzel. And Barry Manilow himself would have provided an actual speaking role. He wouldn't have just done the music. He would have played one of the characters. But this film was cancelled. And then many years later, Disney would snatch that up, wouldn't they, with Tangled. So... yeah, this one, I think the best way I can describe this film is that, I don't hate this film by any stretch of the imagination, but I was mentioning this to you earlier, that Don Bluth worked for Disney and he thought that Disney were becoming very disillusioned and they were sort of losing their old ways of animation and the groundbreaking stuff that they made from the days of Snow White or Fantasia. All of these animation techniques, he felt like they were being lost and they weren't being told to the new generation. Disney were cutting corners and wanted to just churn product out, with not much consideration for the animation. Get it done quickly and get it done on the cheap. And they didn't really have the same passion. So that was the element that drove Don Bluth away. And I really admire his tenacity, actually, and his drive to go, you know what, I've got a vision. I'm going to start my own animation company. I'm going to do my own thing. Because it takes balls to do that, and he did it. And for a lot of films, he was outpacing Disney, as I mentioned on An American Tail, Land Before Time, and things like that. And he was producing some of the most groundbreaking animated films of all time. But I feel like by this point, the scale shifted, and I think in a way, through Don Bluth producing the films that he did, to the successes that they did, I think it made Disney as a company go, well, hang on a minute, someone else is beating us now, so we need to up our game, and that's the nature of business, isn't it?
What was the last one he did, though?
What do you mean? Sorry.
What was the last one Don Bluth did
before this one?
No, like at the moment.
Titan AE, which came out in the early 2000s, and since then he's gone quiet for about 20 years.
Titan AE. What was that about?
It's a sci-fi film. It's sort of a mesh of 3D animation and 2D. Apparently, it's really good. It's in the same vein as something like Atlantis or Treasure Planet, those sort of forgotten gems. I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on it fully, but I have it. It's ready to go.
Interesting. I'm just wondering where he kind of ended.
Well, it was just that he was going through so many companies. I think the problem is that Don Bluth in his career never had one solid distribution company that backed him and really marketed the films. He was kind of passed around, and even with the case of this one, his company filed for bankruptcy and then had to be bought out by 2 separate companies, and they'd hang on to him for a while, and then there'd be a lot more financial losses and they'd let him go, and he's picked up by Fox. And then Anastasia was a massive hit. Titan AE wasn't, and lost a hell of a lot of money, and then that forced Fox Animation to basically disband, and he hasn't produced anything since. So
Remember Fox Kids?
I do. That was a good time.
That was good.
90s was just the best, I think, for sort of children's and family content in terms of like cartoons and the shows that we got. We might be biased because we grew up in that time, but genuinely, like the quality of stuff.
And now it's all stopped.
Speaking of 90s cartoons, which 90s animated cartoon series do we absolutely love and talk about most of the time?
Animaniacs.
Yes. Before this film was released in cinemas, there was an Animaniacs short that was attached to the beginning of this in cinemas.
I did not know that, but I was going to say, so there's 3 characters in this that fly off, and they reminded me of the 3 Animaniacs.
Are they like the bugs that try and... Yeah.
They reminded me of them. I was like, oh, it's the Animaniacs. So I did not know that.
I feel like that's a thing with Don Bluth as well. I feel like that, like the 3 cutesy characters that try and help the heroes, because you have that in Secret of Nim, don't you, with Mrs. Brisby's children. You have like the 3 childhood heroes almost. I'm trying to think if you get that in any of the other ones as well. I feel like we've seen that in a lot of films, or maybe I'm just thinking of stuff like Robin Hood, where you have like the rabbit and the turtle, you know, when they're like firing the arrow in that film. It's a trope that you see in a lot of these films, essentially. Yeah. I think it's in Pebble and the Penguin. I think that's what I'm thinking of in a couple of weeks' time. I think we get...
Isn't that a true story?
In the sense that I think there is something that penguins try and find like a nice shiny pebble as almost like an engagement thing in courtship rituals. Yeah. Which I actually didn't know until fairly recently. I think I found that out. Which is
it's like a thing. It's really nice.
So yeah, I think just going back to sort of the difference between Don Bluth's company and Disney, I think Don Bluth's success with the string of films that he had really did make other animation companies go, or at least Disney go, we need to up our game, we need to push to the next level. And of course they did with The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and all of the other 90s films. And then they became so successful and reset the standard that Don Bluth then felt like he had to copy what Disney were doing again. Don Bluth kind of charted his own course and was producing films like An American Tail, Land Before Time, even stuff like All Dogs Go to Heaven, and before that, Secret of Nim. Very, very different to the Disney mold. It was a lot more mature. It was a lot darker. It was dealing with quite intense, lofty themes for kids to handle. And I feel like by this point in the 90s, he dumbed it down quite a bit, especially with Rockadoodle. And even kind of with this one, it feels like it's just chasing after the style of another company because it's popular and it's making money at the moment. And maybe he should have just stuck to his guns and made his own thing. Then again, I think Rockadoodle was his own thing. So, I don't know.
I think Rockadoodle was just one of those things of like, I mean, what was the time difference between this and what was before
Rockadoodle was 91, I think. So this was 3 years after 94.
Oh, okay. It's a lot longer than I thought. I thought it was like a year.
But I think this went into production in the 91, I think, as well. So it was around about that time.
Yeah, Rockadoodle just seemed like the kind of quick little, like, here's a featurette kind of thing.
Well, around this time, he had 3 movies in development, which are, well, this one and then his next 2, A Troll in Central Park and Pebble and the Penguin. All of these were in production, apparently, at this time. But because Rockadoodle lost so much money, Bluth Entertainment, which was his company, went into liquidation and had to be bailed out by 2 companies. So it was Merlin Films and Media Assets that came in and bailed him out of the ship, basically, and gave him enough money. I think it was $6 million a piece or something like that they chipped in, which secured Thumbelina and A Troll in Central Park. So he was set for his next 2 films. But they requested that Thumbelina be released first, which probably makes sense. Let's talk the casting for this thing then. Let's talk some characters in this. So what did you think to Thumbelina as a main protagonist?
Voice-wise, or you mean like just the actual
everything? We can go into voices, animation style, the actual character.
Voice-wise, I think she was all right. I didn't think her face suited her voice. I don't know why. I didn't. I don't think it's anything to do with Little Mermaid, but I just don't think her face suited her voice because she does look like a quite, you know, she doesn't look like that princessy sort because she's not meant to. But with Jodie Benson's voice, it sounds like that's where it kind of belongs. It's really odd. I
Is that
didn't
maybe
dislike
because
it.
you're familiar with The Little
Well,
Mermaid and
that's what
you're
I'm saying.
hearing
I
that
don't
voice?
think it is, but it just a lot of times I was a bit like, this is weird. But then as it progressed, it made more sense. But at first, yeah, it was a little bit odd.
I mean, I've mentioned this on a bunch of the other reviews that we've done. I love the way that Don Bluth animates human characters, and they just feel so expressive and lifelike. Every time I see them, I feel like they've been rotoscoped because they just look so natural that he manages to capture the subtleties in an expression that I don't even feel like Disney was ever able to do to
Like
that
Wallace and
standard.
Gromit can do.
They just feel so lifelike, and they just exude that personality. It feels like they have the real actors interacting with each other on set, and they've just animated over it, which I know isn't the case. I mean, Jodie Benson's a great voice actress. Love her from the Little Mermaid, and of course Barbie as well in the Toy Story films as well. She's a great voice actress, a Disney legend. But we know the reason that she was cast in this was because of the tremendous hit that Little Mermaid was, and we're trying to capture that same magic in some way. I never had that disconnect where I felt like the voice didn't match the character. I went into this knowing that Jodie Benson was the voice, so I kind of knew what I was going to
That
get.
might be another reason as well, because I knew she was the voice when I went in watching this movie. So it's one of those things of, because I knew it, it was odd to hear.
Mm-hmm. Well, Don Bluth stated when he was sort of coming up with the idea for this, he says, quote, "I wanted every little girl in the world to love Thumbelina, and I was determined to get an early start on the script." And he was really pushing that little girls could identify with the character of Thumbelina. She's very traditional at the beginning, and I do think it's important that we do spend a lot of time with her on her own, but a lot of the film does feel like she's just kind of thrown into all these situations, like she's just kind of passively going through the motions in some way. There is a nice scene where the beetle calls her ugly because she's not a beetle when she's invited to the beetle ball, and then she's crying, she's really upset about it, and then the swallow character comes in, and there's a nice bit of animation where I think she's in a tree next to like a spider web, and there's some rain droplets in the spider web, almost like a mirror. And he says, who cares what anyone thinks? Like, that Cornelius thinks you're beautiful, and that's what matters. There's nice little
Isn't he the one that looks
messages
a little
in
bit
there.
like Stevie Wonder, though?
Wait, what?
Doesn't he look a little bit like Stevie Wonder?
Who? Which character?
No, the not Cornelius. Like the fat one
Which one? I don't...
with the thing, and he looks blind. He looks like fucking.
Oh, Mr. Mole.
Yeah, he looks like Stevie Wonder.
Oh my god! What John Hurt's character?
Yeah, that's who he reminds me of, Stevie Wonder.
Christ.
I have a whole image of him in my head of him doing something that looks exactly like Stevie Wonder.
I never made that connection. I must admit, I never made that connection.
What if Stevie Wonder's been faking it all these years?
To what end? Why? That's just his selling point. That's just
he just thought, why not? He just like
it's his niche.
Yeah. Because if you just go in as a singer, then cool. But if you go in as a blind singer, you're like, okay, cool. Do you know what I mean? There's something there.
Well, a few other singers have done that. You've got the opera singer, haven't you? You've got what's his name, Ray, on the piano.
Yeah, I know, but he's there going, right, I'm already black. It's already difficult for myself as it is. Like, let's go one further. Let's make myself blind. That's just everything. That's why he was doing it.
We'll bring it back to the characters a little bit. So Thumbelina, I didn't mind, but she doesn't have that. She doesn't have that endearing quality to her as much as an Ariel or a Belle or Jasmine or something like that. Yeah, she's not quite as standout as that. I think she's a perfectly serviceable protagonist, though. Prince Cornelius, I was kind of getting Peter Pan vibes from him a little bit. It's probably like the fairy connection, and he's flying around and whatnot. I did think it was funny that he has the ability to fly, but yet he rides on a bumblebee, which can fly.
I like that. I thought that was really cool.
I guess it's like the equivalent of, like, I can run into town. I have the ability to run into town, but it's going to be quicker if I'm in a car. So I guess like the bumblebee flies faster or something, right?
Yeah, but do you remember like Arthur and like where they'd be on the phone and they'd hold it to their head, but their ears are like there?
Yes, yeah.
So it's kind of like that.
I just thought it was funny how he's like, I need to saddle up my bumblebee because I need to fly and rescue her. I'm like, you have wings, and you did a whole "I can show you the world" moment where you're flying with her, like Superman and Lois Lane. Like, what are we doing? Just fly. I think he's a fine character, but as I say, he just disappears throughout the majority of the second act and just shows up again at the very end. I did like his bumblebee vehicle though. I forgot the name of the bumblebee. I like it how it was animated. I thought it was really cool. I like that character. It's like
I did like the bumblebee.
Yeah.
I did. I like random bumblebees and things.
And then you've got like all the side characters and whatnot. So I think the most memorable one for me.
There's a lot of characters, aren't there? Though.
So many characters. You got like the frogs, the frog family. You've got Berkeley Beetle, which is Gilbert Godfrey's character. You've got Miss Fieldmouse, Mr. Mole,
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
I thought that the fairies would have a bigger part to play in this film. I thought there'd be like we'd see more of the kingdom of the fairies and whatnot. Maybe like a Black Cauldron kind of vibe, where they go to, where they go to the kingdom.
Do you know what? I did get reminded with some of the designs though, like Thingy's design with like his hair and everything. It just, yeah. I did get reminded of that a little bit.
Well, I saw a funny picture. It was Don Bluth only knew how to draw one male human character design, because if you think of Dimitri in Anastasia, he's very, very similar, and even the main character in Titan AE, very similar design, like the facial structure, like the nose, like the hairstyle. It is kind of repeated throughout a lot of his films. But going back to the formula, how he said that there isn't really a clear-cut villain in this, which may have strengthened this film. I think he nailed that formula with Anastasia, where you have Rasputin, you have the comedy villainous sidekick with Bartok the Bat, and that's probably why it was his most financially successful one. It had a memorable villain, great protagonist in Anastasia. It was a fairy tale story. Well, not fairy tale, it's based on real life, isn't it? Loosely, very, very fucking loosely based on real life. You have the musical numbers, but you have that memorable villain. It felt like everything came together for this one. So it almost felt like this was the precursor to nailing that Disney formula. And ironically now, this film and indeed Anastasia, they've all been acquired by Disney through their purchase of 20th Century Fox. So what started out as a rivalry in a way between Don Bluth and Disney, now Disney have just
Disney will just purchase everything in the end, won't they?
I know. Yeah, they will. They will.
They'll purchase Bugs Bunny in the end. Imagine that.
And we get Who Framed Roger Rabbit 2. It's going to happen.
No, Who Framed Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? That's what it'll be.
There you go. That's an interesting way they could go about it. I'll be down for that. Side characters for me, if I had to pick a most memorable one, I'd probably go for Berkeley Beetle. I quite liked his design, and I quite liked the Beetle Ball segment of the film. It's very random, but I thought like the fluidity of the movement, the animation, the costumes and everything, I really liked the designs in that scene. So that was probably the one that stood out to me the most. The one that stood out to me the most, as I mentioned, in like, why is this in the film? What are we doing now? That was the frog segment. I could have done without that maybe, but
who's the bird at the end?
Was it Giacomo
with the ice, and he's like, in the ice when there's like ice, and she's on like a tree. He's like
that's Giacomo. That's like the narrator, the French swallow character.
Is that what he's called?
Giacomo, yeah.
He's cool. I like his hat.
Did he remind you of the French pigeon from An American Tail?
Kind of, but he also reminded me of who's the green guy in Saludos Amigos?
Oh Christ! Yeah, the one who smokes the cigar.
Yeah.
Why?
His mannerisms.
You're going to say he looks like him. He doesn't look anything like him.
No, not he looks, but he looks the way he looks. His mannerisms.
Well, speaking of some of the animal characters in this, JDC says, what's odd about the film is that even though there are realistic amphibians in The Land Before Time and All Dogs Go to Heaven, the toads in this film look exactly like the Rockadoodle frogs. I'm trying to remember the frogs in Rockadoodle now. Oh, the bouncers. They're the bouncers, aren't they?
Well,
they come down the red carpet. Bounce, bounce, bounce.
What makes it a frog and not a toad?
Oh, it's a different species. Toads are bigger inherently, I think, aren't they?
I don't know. I've never had
Genus.
one in one hand and one in the other. Never looked.
A toad in the what is it? A toad in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Is that a thing?
I don't know. Oh, there we go. Jessica Douglas coming in clutch. Jose Carioca. That's the name of the
I don't recognize that name, Jessica Douglas.
Neither do I.
Well, no, but the funny thing was, I didn't recognize the name. As soon as you went Jessica Douglas, I thought, oh, is that who the person is? And then I got really confused for a few seconds, and here we are.
So yeah, we do get a lot of these side characters. Let's talk about Miss Fieldmouse for a second, because there's an interesting story behind this, the casting. So the one who ended up doing the voice for the character is Carol Channing. I was watching this with my folks. I mean, I don't think I've seen Carol Channing in anything. My parents are a lot older, so they're aware of older films than me, and they heard the character speak and they were like, that's Carol Channing. Apparently she doesn't change her voice all that much. She's got a very definable voice. But originally Betty White was cast as Miss Fieldmouse, and she went and recorded her lines in Los Angeles, but Bluth apparently thought that her voice apparently, quote, lacked energy, and he wanted to replace her. So he got Carol Channing in to record the lines again. What he didn't count on, though, was that Betty White and Channing were lifelong friends. So they had a phone call one night, and Channing called her up and just said, like, apparently, quote, I just recorded the voice of a field mouse for an animated movie. It was so fun. And Betty White said, funny, I did exactly the same thing. But Bluth hadn't told Betty White that they weren't using her voice. So very awkward situation there. Apparently there was a very angry phone call from Betty White's agents to Don Bluth, and later he regretted how he handled that situation and wrote a personal apology letter to Betty White. I don't know why he couldn't have just told her. You know, that's the name of the game in Hollywood, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't understand. It's like when people send postcards from holiday now. I'm like, why? Just text me, say all good. I'm like, amazing.
WhatsApp. Yeah.
It's.
But speaking of Miss Fieldmouse, can you remember the song that she sings in this film? One of the 19 songs in this film. Can you remember the one that she sings?
One of the 19, no.
She sings a song called Marry the Mole, where she's trying to convince Thumbelina to wed Mr. Mole. That is the first animated film in history to win a Razzie Award, and it won a Razzie for Worst Original Song with that song, Marry the Mole.
I don't think they're as bad to be worst songs. I don't think they're that bad. But
I don't know what it was up against that year. We'd have to see the short list of things. I don't really pay attention to the Razzies, but apparently that being the first animated film to win a Razzie, I thought it was worth mentioning.
Didn't Snow White win a Gay Award?
What, the new one? Or the old one? Probably. The new one. Probably.
Like, it just reminds you of these new weird awards that we don't know are things, but I think there's like a gay category that it won. I can't remember.
Well, it's the only award that film's going to win, so we'll allow them a small victory with that, I suppose. Were there any particular scenes in this where you were really taken in by the animation and the beauty of it?
I liked when Thumbelina and what's his name first meet, and because the thing is, because it also looks like he's a lot bigger than her.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain angle it's done at, and it looks like he's a lot bigger than her, and it's really, really odd. And then in my head, I thought, as soon as I saw that, I thought, what if the story was about this little girl who was no bigger than a thumb, who falls in love with this dude who's like normal size? And then I started thinking about midgets and then falling in love with like real people.
Real people? Are you saying that midgets aren't real people?
Yeah, my brain went off on a tangent. But I just remember that scene. It stands out, and I thought it was really cool. And I like the colors. And I like the way the shot was because, like I say, it made him look so much taller than her. Yeah, it just sent my brain down a very different route.
Yeah, I think it's going back to like the main poster from this, if I just bring it up. Yeah, that initial meeting where they're stood on the storybook and she's got the page open of that romantic scene that she longs to have at some point. And you've got the sense of scale with the two characters. I really like that stuff. It reminded me of Peter Pan. You've got the dog character as well, who's sort of the Nana character in Peter Pan as well. I don't know. I was picking up on some of those vibes, and it probably is my favorite scene. And this is actually Don Bluth's favorite scene, animated segment from this as well, which I think he personally storyboarded himself. It's basically the whole New World segment where they go on their romantic flight together during their first meeting. I keep forgetting
And
the
there's
name of
loads
the
of
song.
pixie dust following them.
Let Me Be Your Wings. It's that segment. And there's one piece of animation that sort of caught me off guard a little bit because it's so unlike, I believe, any other shot in the film. And I think it's where she's just met the Prince Cornelius, and she's kind of pining and fawning over him. And it's a close-up of her face, and there's like this sort of hazy, soft focus around her face. It's towards the beginning of the film. And that's just sort of where I picked up on how lifelike he's able to capture those human emotions in his human characters. Any other scenes that
How
sorry.
does Thumbelina know how to speak English?
It's just the whimsy of the story. She's born out of... They're really going to ask that question. As someone who's born out of a flower just at the age of 16, she's just there, the size of a thumb.
Yeah.
Just go with it. She can speak English.
Well, in my mind, I saw her, she started talking. I was like, that doesn't make sense. How does she know how to speak?
That was quite... Actually, going back to that was quite a nice opening shot where the flower opens up to reveal Thumbelina initially. I thought that was animated very well.
That was... I did like that. And what's the woman's name?
What, the mom?
Yeah.
I think she is literally credited as Thumbelina's mom.
Right, okay, but I liked her, like, facial expression and stuff when she saw her. I thought that was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't make sense how she can speak English.
There's some fun moments in that first song as well, that like on the farmyard where the chickens are crowding around their feed and the little chick can't get through, so Thumbelina picks up a few grains of corn. That was reminding me of is it Gus Gus in Cinderella? Who's like
what I
trying
thought
to
as well.
Corn?
Yeah.
Some of these I might be reaching for. I'm just thinking, oh, that reminds me of that. That reminds me of that. But I think it is pretty evident with this one, more so than any of the other Bluth films. Maybe Anastasia to some degree as well, where it is trying to go after that Disney kind of formula. I will say this is much better than Rockadoodle. Just animation quality for me, the film overall, it feels a lot more focused than that film does. And I think having it be based on a classic fairy tale story helps ground it a lot more and feels more akin to sort of the grandiose fairy tale style quality that Don Bluth is inspired by with classic Disney. That being said, it still feels quite disjointed and unfocused as an overall product. I don't think it has the tightness in writing.
It doesn't feel like really disjointed. It feels very like it's there, like cool, it did well, but I do think it is. I'd still give it like a 7 because it's still a very fun movie, and it's one of those you sit there and you watch and you just kind of are taken back to being a kid again, and it's nice.
Oh, I think if I'd have watched this as a kid, I think I would have loved it. Just, the music, I would have been just completely swept up by these characters.
The mum looks like the mum from Fox and Hound.
Yes, a little bit. Well, Don Bluth worked on that as well, didn't he? Did a lot of animation on that character. Yeah, it was sort of a mix of that and Mrs. Potts a little bit, that motherly, matronly style character. Yeah. Got a comment from Bath Time who says, "Big up, lads. Hope you enjoyed Easter and 2 rare UK bank holidays." I know. I'm savouring all of this time off. Trust me, it's much, much needed. So, it's been good, man. It's been chilling.
Rely on it being a bank holiday. So I was like, then I don't have to go to work. I'm like, what if it's not a bank holiday? I'm like, well, I guess we'll find out tomorrow, won't we?
Yeah. Bath Time. I've seen your email, by the way. I will get an email to you either tonight or tomorrow, and we can chat about some video ideas. But I'm liking the suggestions that you sent me, man. So we've got plenty to work with there. Have we said everything we can on Thumbelina? I'm trying to think if there's anything that sticks out to me.
I have a question. So, you know how we do like movie reviews? Do you reckon there's anyone out there that does like porn movie reviews? Like, there's an audience for it or not?
I'm almost certain there probably is.
Because the more I think about that, the more I'm just like, well, you kind of watch a porn movie, you kind of like done. Like, you don't really, talk about the lighting and the visuals and the like. But I'm sure there are people out there that do.
Probably, yeah.
And they have this debate with loads of people, and they're like, yeah, but this is good because of this, and like imagine that. Just I feel like that's a thing.
Well, if in a few years we get desperate for ideas on the channel and we need to think about branching out to something new, then put a pin in that. Maybe maybe we'll come back to it.
Hey, it can be done. It can be done in a very nice, tasteful way.
JDC says, since you can clearly tell that this movie was trying hard to cash in on Disney's popularity at the time, the late Gilbert Gottfried, the voice actor of Iago from Aladdin, voices Berkeley Beetle. Yep, very, very distinguishable voice in this. He's got a hilarious voice. I absolutely love Gilbert Gottfried, and he's always going to be a Iago to me, but it was nice to see him play a different character in this. As I say, I do like the look of the character. I think it was a unique little segment. That was, out of all the random encounters, that one was probably the one that I enjoyed the most and found the most entertaining.
Did you see the game show that he was in? Where one of the penalties was, because it was about these people that were like in boxes, and one of the penalties that someone put on someone was to have Gilbert Gottfried stand with you for 2 hours and read the Bible to you.
I haven't. Please say there's a video on that.
Yeah, it's great.
I've seen the one where he reads 50 Shades of Grey. That's pretty funny.
I have not seen that.
I'll link you to that afterwards. It's so funny. I have to check that Bible one out though. I just want an audiobook read by him. Or could you imagine a sat nav or something in his voice?
Yeah, that'd be fun. I wonder if he's done any audiobooks.
He probably has, actually. I'd be surprised if he hasn't. He's got a very, very distinguishable voice. So yeah, Thumbelina. I'm actually struggling to think of anything else.
She would have been better if she had red hair. I would.
Well, she has sort of auburn hair in this, doesn't she?
Yeah, I know, but she reminded me of lesbian Tinkerbell, so it was that. So she would have just had red hair. Oh no, I think.
Yeah, we can't have red hair because then the comparisons to Little Mermaid would be way too much. We can't do that.
That would be a bit. To be fair, I think it was good. I think it turned out very well. I think it was, I'd say, a solid 7 out of 10. But I wouldn't push any higher. But I would definitely not push any lower.
Mm-hmm. I'm just checking when. Lion King was 1994, wasn't it? Let me check when that came out because this was released in at the back end of March in the United States. I'm just checking when Lion King came out. It was June. Okay, so there was a couple of months difference, but
Lion King came out near when Teen Wolf came out, didn't it?
You have not been keeping up with your Teen Wolf references the last couple of weeks. I'm very disappointed. You broke the combo.
When did Teen Wolf come out?
It was 84.
No, but what month?
August, I think we said it was, didn't we?
Yeah, because this retrospective has a weird thing of darting around that, and it just doesn't come near it.
Yeah. Should have stuck with Van Halen. But okay, if you had to pick one, we're not going to do the whole Van Halen reference thing because we've done it with the Disney films. You did it with 64 Disney films, which is a tremendous achievement, by the way. I congratulate you on that. What would if you had to do one for Thumbelina, what Van Halen reference can you think of right now?
Oh wow!
We've got fairies.
Hey, Little Woman.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
it's nice. Like Pretty Woman. It's like the thing that came into my head. That's the first thing I could think of.
Wait, did you say Pretty Woman?
Yeah, because Pretty Woman's the song, but then I thought Little Woman's like Pretty Woman, and I thought of the movie Little Woman, and
who plays the main role in Pretty Woman next to Richard Gere?
Oh yeah, what's the name again? Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts. We brought it full circle. Look at that.
There we go. See, there's a Van Halen reference everywhere.
There is. Life's full of these little coincidences, isn't it? And it's wonderful when that happens. So I think, honestly, that will probably do it. I mean, we're coming up to an hour now anyway, and I feel like I've said anything. There are some really nice moments of animation in here, and it does capture that Don Bluth quality to a lot of the human characters and some of the fun little side characters. I do feel like it jumps the shark in a few parts, and I don't feel it feels like a very cohesive whole. I think it could have maybe done with a few more passes on the screenplay and the story. Could have tightened it up, and if they were trying to chase after that Disney formula, I think they could have gone more into that formula with a solid villain, perhaps. And just tighten it up. It feels a bit unfocused. It jumps around quite a bit. And I feel like the first 20 minutes of the film is very solid and was building to something, which unfortunately I don't think it stuck the landing. But it's a huge improvement on Rockadoodle. I would go back and watch this film again. I think I probably would listen to some aspects of the soundtrack too. I think it's a very sweet film. I think you could do much worse than this one for a lot of those films that were trying to cash in on the Disney hype. JDC says, it just goes to show you 1997's Anastasia was a much better Disney-esque Don Bluth film. Yeah, we were saying this earlier, weren't we? Than Thumbelina, due to it having more edge in places and a story that feels a bit more cohesive. So there, yeah, 100%, he nailed that formula. And maybe if he had have continued that formula throughout the 90s, we'd be at a very, very different stage now.
I'm not looking forward to Anastasia, though.
You've seen that too many times, you said, didn't you, I think?
Yeah.
But you haven't seen it in a while, as far as I'm aware, so...
I haven't seen it in 9 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you might come back to it a bit refreshed then, I suppose. So next week, we're actually going to stay in the year of 1994. This film was released at the back end of the year in October. A film that has 2 titles. I knew this film by a different name when I was growing up and had this on video, but since then it's reverted back to its US title, I guess. We're going to be covering 1994's A Troll in Central Park. This film
is that like an American Werewolf in Paris?
In what way? The title?
I don't know. It just sounds like
where are you going with that? Well, the original title for us and what I had on video was Stanley's Magic Garden, which does sound a bit Jimmy Savile-ish, doesn't it? So maybe I can see why they I don't know why they changed the title. I'm hopefully going to try and find that out for next week. But yeah, that's what it said on my old video. We are going to continue this relatively shaky 90s career for Don Bluth. I loved this film as a kid, though, A Troll in Central Park. And indeed, the one after that, Pebble and the Penguin, I adored that as well. Although they were, critical and commercial failures too. So coming to it with a fresh pair of eyes, I haven't seen A Troll in Central Park since I was a littlin. I haven't seen it in probably, well over 20 years.
I've never seen it.
Well over 20 years. So yeah, it'll be a first for you, and it'll be, I can remember certain bits of it, but I'll definitely be watching it very refreshed as well. And then how many we got after that? So 1, 2, 3. We just got over about a month after that, and we're all done on the Don Bluth film. So we'll probably round it off there. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight or dropped a comment and kept the conversation going. In the meantime, if you're discovering this after the fact, let us know your thoughts on Thumbelina. How would you say it ranks up against a lot of the other Don Bluth films? And did it work for you as a Disney tie-in film? Let us know some of your earliest memories of this. Please do consider subscribing to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. And indeed, the live streams will be coming thick and fast this week because I'll be going live again in 2 days' time with JX Editor. We've got a new series of Disney Star Wars' Andor. So we've got Andor Season 2. The one shining gem in the Disney Star Wars takeover, because Series 1 was fantastically written, and I'm really looking forward to Season 2. So me and JX will be back every Wednesday. They're releasing 3 episodes in one go, so I've got to try and cram 3 in one day. I'm sure we can do it, though, so hopefully we can see some of you there if Star Wars is your thing. But yeah, if you're locked in for us reviewing these animated films, we'll be back next Monday at 8 p.m. talking about A Troll in Central Park. So hopefully see some of you there. Take care, everyone.